That is possible, and they are not delivering.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, I confess to feeling a bit like at a mosquito in a nudist colony. Such is the exposure of all of the three opposition parties that we've seen over the last fortnight. You see, Labor's had its worst conference in a generation. You've got a party at war with its own caucus, you've got the David versus David leadership crisis, and you've got the other David, Mr. Speaker, muffing his numbers over their most important policy announcement this year. And then, Mr. Speaker, you've got the Hobbit hatred hypocrisy. Having damned the deals that enabled the Hobbit to be made in New Zealand, having demonised the Warner Brothers and Peter Jackson, Labour now want to, look, Grant Robertson, he wants to get down there and hog the red carpet like he's been a Hobbit lover all the way along. Actually, the Hobbit is the perfect end to Nationals Year. It's about jobs. It's about our creative industries. It's about giving the New Zealand brand the freshness that our visitor industry, when it so much needs a boost. It's about highlighting how John Key and his ministers are prepared to make bold punts to give New Zealand an edge and to give New Zealanders a job. But it's not just Labour, Mr. Speaker, that has had a nightmare run over the last fortnight. The Greens' big player of the year, Mr. Speaker, has been the Don't Frack with New Zealand campaign. They demanded an independent inquiry. They got it, but then disagree with the conclusions and have bagged it. Mr. Speaker, a fig leaf cannot hide the extent to which the Greens found the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment where they'd gone wrong. You see, the Greens demanded a moratorium, saying that New Zealanders' health, safety, environment were all being put at risk by a negligent government. The Environment Commissioner said that a moratorium cannot be justified on the evidence. And the Greens have gone on and said that fracking cannot be done safely. That's what Mr. Hughes has said, and must be banned throughout New Zealand. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment has concluded that the risks from fracking are manageable if they're done to the proper standards, the exact position that this government has taken and the very well respected Royal Society in the UK has taken. Now, if the Greens had any class or any sense, they would have accepted the Independent Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's report. Instead, they have stooped so low and become so desperate that they're now telling us that the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment has been heavied by the oil industry. Mr. Speaker, disgraceful. How desperate can they get? It's just like it was, Mr. Speaker, over genetic modification a decade ago. They ran a scare campaign, exaggerating their risks. They demanded an inquiry, but when the evidence before the Royal Commission of Inquiry came to a different conclusion, they would not budge. Mr. Speaker, the Greens have seriously damaged themselves over the fracking issue. They have shown that far from being an evidence-based environmental party, they are doctrinaire, they're anti-science, they're an anti-progress protest party that will cynically exploit people's fears of new technologies for political gain. But, Mr. Speaker, it's not just Labour and the Greens. New Zealand First's end to this year is no better. This is a party that prides itself on championing the cause of older New Zealanders, but is ending the year consumed in allegations from family that one of its MPs ripped off elderly mother for tens of thousands of dollars to support their gambling habit. Now, Mr. Peters and his colleagues are always the first to demand inquiries, answers, openness. Imagine the furore if this was a government MP who wasn't prepared to front for the answers and answer the questions. Imagine the furore if a government MP was hiding away. Mr. Speaker, the New Zealand First, Greens and Labour parties are in a mess, but they've done New Zealand a great favour over the last fortnight, showing they can't govern themselves, let alone ever govern this country.
Raymond Hall. Raymond Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Kiwi dream of home on a